From time to time, incredible things happen in Peppa Pig, like Mrs. Cow's wedding or the birth of Evie. But just imagine if time actually started moving forward in Peppa's world. Susie's dad. In that case, several storylines the show never wanted to explore, but that were always there, would finally be revealed. Like the mystery surrounding Susie's dad, which would at last be explained when this character shows up after so many years, maybe even during Peppa and Susie's teenage years. We believe the reason Mr. Sheep has never appeared is because he divorced Susie's mom, which would explain why his fate was never mentioned in the series. Since Peppa Pig is a preschool cartoon, they don't deal with topics like divorce, but that could change if the character started growing up along with the fans. The episode featuring the return of Mr. Sheep would be a bit more dramatic than usual, especially because we don't know how Peppa's best friend would react when meeting her dad. Would she be happy to finally know him, or angry that he never showed up before? Well, maybe it's just a matter of time before the series clears up this mystery for us. This is just one of the 13 things you didn't know will happen in the future of Peppa Pig. So grab your popcorn and get ready. Another Cinewave starts now. Dottie becomes a mom. In this possible future, we see the Pig family grow even more. After Mummy Pig had Evie, it would be her sister Dottie's turn to have a baby. As far as we know, she hasn't had one yet, so that would make Aunt Dottie a mom. Her child unfortunately wouldn't appear very often since Peppa's aunt lives in another country, but the two of them would definitely show up in special episodes, and we're pretty sure fans would love every single one of those appearances. So what about you? Are you also counting down the days until we see Dottie in a new episode with a baby or not? We sure are, and we hope it happens as soon as possible. Imaginary friend. Someone who's only going to get more and more attention as time goes on is Evie. Right now, she's still a baby, but eventually she'll grow and become a little kid just like George, if time really starts moving forward in the show. When that happens, it's very likely Evie will do something many children go through at some point, create an imaginary friend. That's something totally normal in childhood, and it would make perfect sense to see Evie having a buddy created by her imagination. Especially since we're talking about a show that's always valued playing, imagining, and even jumping in muddy puddles. But Peppa Pig is the kind of series that doesn't mind exaggerating from time to time, and this could be one of those cases. They might even reveal that Evie's imaginary friend isn't just in her head, but some kind of magical being, or even a spirit. Evie and Alexander. Besides her imaginary friend, sooner or later Evie would also make friends with real children. She's already getting attention as a baby, but she still can't communicate, something that will obviously change as she grows. We think that as soon as the little one learns to talk, she'll quickly become best friends with her cousin Alexander, who by then would be a bit older too. They could easily become inseparable, just like Peppa and Susie Sheep, or George and Richard Rabbit. This would be the very first time a member of the Pig family had a relative as their best friend. That never happened with Peppa and Chloe because her cousin is already 10 years old, while Peppa is only 4. A pretty big age gap. Return of the grandparents. We already mentioned that Susie's dad might come back at some point in the future, but he's not the only mysterious character with a strong chance of appearing later in the series. Peppa's grandparents could as well. Of course, we're not talking about the grandparents who are Mummy Pig's parents and who are always in the show, but rather the ones from Daddy Pig's side of the family. Those have never shown up, and it's more than time that changed. The problem is, well, grandparents are usually older people. There's a darker possibility that they haven't appeared in the series because they've already passed away. So if Peppa were to meet them only once she's older, it could be by visiting their graves for the very first time, after Daddy Pig explains this tragedy to her. Pretty sad, right? If you think that would be really sad too, drop a comment down below with #grandparents. A real dinosaur. What we're about to say sounds pretty absurd, but the funny thing is it's actually one of the most likely things on this whole list. George meeting a real dinosaur. He absolutely loves these creatures, but since they all went extinct millions of years ago, he's never had the chance to see one alive. The closest he ever got was when George went to the museum on his birthday and saw dinosaur fossils that once roamed the earth ages ago. But of course, that could change. In a series that has already featured a superhero, Super Potato, and even Santa Claus, nothing is impossible. Especially because the Pig family lives in England, a country very close to Scotland. And you know what's in Scotland? Loch Ness, where legends say the Loch Ness Monster lives. Pretty creative name, I know. The Pig family has already traveled to several countries in the show. Sooner or later, they could visit Scotland and discover that the Loch Ness Monster is real. Its appearance looks a lot like a dinosaur, which might mean it's the last living dinosaur still around. And come to think of it, this doesn't even need to be set far in the future. It's something that could totally happen in the very next episode of Peppa Pig. Who knows? George the archaeologist. Now, something that would only happen much later is George starting to work, because right now he's still just a little kid. But if the characters grew older, George would eventually need a job. and he'd be amazing at working as an archaeologist, since that career fits his personality perfectly. George is obsessed with dinosaurs. It's possible that this obsession might fade a little as he grows up, but we bet his love for these animals and for prehistory will never truly go away. So he'd definitely have a blast digging up fossils and studying the past of humankind. Madame Gazelle gets married. Madame Gazelle is one of the coolest characters in Peppa Pig. Not only is her personality fun, but her past is also really interesting. She was in a band and is very likely a vampire, something we've already talked about in other videos. That's why it would be so exciting if her future also became interesting, with her getting married. There's a strong possibility Gazelle was already married before, since she's quite an old lady and has a black and white picture of a man hanging in her house. Could this guy be her father or grandfather? Sure, but given how old she is, photos would still have been taken in black and white back when she was young, meaning the man in the picture could very well have been her husband. And it might be precisely because of her old age that Gazelle is single today, since her husband may have passed away from old age a long time ago while she remained alive, possibly because she's a vampire. Since then, Gazelle has apparently stayed single, which makes it seem like she never got over losing her husband. So it would be beautiful to see her meet another man and realize she can love again, and that there's nothing wrong with that. Baby Bull. Speaking of couples, the relationship between Mrs. Cow and Mr. Bull is super cute, and it's pretty clear it's going to keep developing over time. With that in mind, this is a couple that will most likely have a child in the future of the series. It seems the only reason they don't have a child together yet is because they only recently got married in Peppa Pig's timeline. So get ready to see Mrs. Cow pregnant and having a little bull calf, who might even become one of Evie's friends. What do you think this character's name should be? Susie's half-sister. Back to the subject of Susie's dad, assuming he really does show up in this future of Peppa Pig, it makes sense to think he wouldn't necessarily be the only never-before-seen member of the sheep family to appear. After all, if Mr. Sheep has been divorced for so many years, he could very well have started another family in the meantime. So it's not crazy to theorize that Susie might have a half-sister, a daughter of her dad with another mom. This sister could be introduced by Mr. Sheep so that Peppa's friends could meet her. And who knows, the two girls might even become close friends. And who knows, maybe you could go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our videos about your favorite cartoons. What do you say? Great Aunt Evie. We've already talked about a few things that might happen with Evie, but what about Great Aunt Evie, Mummy Pig's relative who happens to share the same name as Peppa's little sister? This character unfortunately passed away before the show even began, but the future of the series could tell us more about her past or even introduce a relative of Great Aunt Evie who has a stronger connection to her. That way, we could find out whether she actually looked like the younger Evie or if the similarity between the two ends with just the name. Miss Rabbit in Love. Miss Rabbit is probably one of the characters who appears the most in the entire series, since she works at almost every single job in town. We highly doubt she'll ever retire in Peppa Pig's future, only if we're talking about a really far-off future when she'd be way too old to keep working. Although, knowing Miss Rabbit, she'd still find a way to keep being a firefighter and doing all kinds of risky jobs even while in a wheelchair. But something that really does have a chance of happening is Miss Rabbit falling in love with a great guy. She's always so focused on work, and that must be the reason why she hasn't found a partner yet. But what if she ran into another animal who also loves having multiple jobs? The two of them would be perfect for each other and would complete one another. Mummy Pig the writer. Maybe you didn't know this, but Mummy Pig is actually a writer and has published books. This is something that doesn't matter much in most episodes, to the point where some people don't even notice this detail. Now that this super mom is busy taking care of Evie, it must be tough for her to focus on writing. But when Evie grows up, we can totally imagine her getting back to writing more often and taking it further, starting to really focus on her books and becoming more successful than ever. It would be amazing to see her thriving like that. This video is almost over, but your fun can keep going if you click on one of the 2 videos we left on your screen. Thanks, and see you next time!